started recording.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really honoured to be here again. This time the chairing's actually switched round and I'm chairing this time round, and our dear friend Dawn is going to be one of the participants, which is even better. So we've got a real delight of discussion, hopefully, which is coming up in a moment. Before that, though, let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Dr. Victoria Showunmi, and I'm your chair for tonight. And then I'm going to go to my colleague who's sitting in a lovely chair there, who normally chairs, and you can say who she is.
Hi, I'm Dawn Grant. I'm the founder of Black Economics. I tend to be a tech and marketing person, and I am a mathematician, just like Eve, my colleague here, is also a mathematician. Yeah, and we do various things, whether it's in our church or in our community. You know, there are various areas in which we are leaders, and we're very pleased to be part of this discussion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Dawn. And then I pass the baton to our new colleague who's joined the team. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
To our new colleague, which is Afua. Welcome, Afua. Tell me a little bit about you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria. So Afua, my name is Afua Yeboah, and I'm the CEO of Partners on the Ground. I'm actually a HR and OD consultant, organization development consultant, and I work with small businesses, large corporates, to help support them with developing their businesses. I've worked in many guises. I've reinvented myself so many times, but what's core to my and dear to my heart is entrepreneurship and business development. So I just love to see businesses grow, and those that are struggling with that journey, looking at how I can support them with their growth. I'm also currently doing a master's in organization development with the hope of going on to do a PhD in organization development and change. So I'm really looking at how I can contribute to the body of knowledge around OD, because it's, you know, it's quite a significant area in our lives, organization development. It's a new growing area, and there's lots of knowledge that needs to be kind of developed, you know, just in that area. So it's something that I'm looking forward to participating in. The other thing is I'm a mother. I love to say that bit. I'm a mother of 3 young adults, and they're up and growing in you know, London, Black Britain, UK. They're Black British Ghanaians, I say, because they grew up with me in Ghana. I spent 12 years in Ghana. I moved from London to Ghana, and they came along with me, and so they've had the taste and flavor of living in Ghana. And so I guess over the time we'll get to find out a bit more about each other, but it's really great to be here and contribute to the discussion on leadership.
Thank you very much, Afua. Thank you. Now moving on to our regular colleague who's been here from the beginning. I hand the baton over to Eve.
Yes, thanks, Victoria. Hi, everyone. My name is Eve Anderson. I have many guises, as Dawn says, but I am a mathematician by training many years ago. I'm an interim. I work with the public sector. I was working in local government for over 30 years. And about a year and a half ago, I decided to spread my wings and become a consultant. Like Afua, we are fellow bodies in terms of HR. I don't do the OD side, I do the sides that deal with what we call hard HR, not because it's not easy, it's about being I'm an employee relations specialist, and that's one of my key areas that I deal with. I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development for quite a number of years. So that's how I make my living. I have my fingers in lots of other pies. And I'm a mother of 2, one who's nearly 33 and one who's nearly 21. So there's a big gap between them. So that's when it goes, so I'm happy to be a mother. And I've had lots of challenges. My younger daughter does have a disability, so that's been another journey. And maybe at some time in the future, we might be able to talk about that particular issue, I think it would be probably helpful as well. So I'm really enjoying this new aspect of my life, doing this kind of podcasting in our little way, talking about key topics. And I'm really happy about the topic we're going to cover today, because I'd like to talk a little bit about my story about that. So yes, I was born and raised, actually, can't tell from my accent, but I'm actually a Brummie by birth. And I left Birmingham at the age of 19 and went to Liverpool for 3 years to study at university, and I got a degree in mathematical statistics. So yes, and then I went into HR. So that wasn't a waste, was it? I use it now and then maybe to data stuff, but yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. So I'm a math lover, so I guess I'm a geek. Me and Dawn, we're geeks, so we're geeks, yeah, we're geeks. And, you know, I think we're fantastic looking geeks. I think, yes, thumbs up for the geeks. So thank you, Victoria. I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eve. That's really, really helpful. So we've got Afua, Eve, and we've got Dawn. And so that's really good. So we're going to have hopefully a really good discussion. You may be wondering why is Victoria doing something on leadership? Well, that's one of my specialisms around my research. One of the areas of research is gender and leadership. I'm kind of known internationally for it and nationally for that particular area of research. So it didn't take long for me to kind of, work out a couple of questions for us to actually start a discussion on. So without any further ado, I'm going to get started. So as I said, the questions are going to be on gender and leadership, and there's no apology for it. So I think the first thing I'd like to ask you, and I'm going to do it in this particular way, I'm going to ask some of you the question as each of you, and some of the questions I may not ask you. It depends how the conversation goes. I may just throw the ball to one person and not to the other. So don't feel that you're going to be asking all the questions at the same time. So just a little bit, jumble it up a bit. This one, though, I want to actually see what all of you say. And it's going to be, so when you think of a leader, who would that be? And why? And I'm going to actually start with Dawn. I'd like to start with Dawn first of all. So when you think of a leader, who would that be? And why is that?
All right, now are we talking about female leaders?
I'm just throwing that out to you. And I want you to just say, what do you think it would be? When you think about a leader, what comes to your mind?
Someone who guides a following. So someone who most likely comes up with ideas of what they think should be done, and somehow they persuade a group of people. It could be a family, it could be a congregation, it could be in an organization, or it could even be a following that they've built up online. They persuade that following to do the things that they feel need to be done to fulfill a particular task. That's what I think a leader is, someone who's able to come up with ideas, strategize, and actually persuade people to follow in the path that they're setting.
All right. Thank you very much, Dawn. So Eve, what when you think of a leader, who would that be and why?
Oh, a couple of people come to mind, because in my view around leadership is about having a strategic vision, about being a commanding presence, and someone who is full of dynamic ideas and is able to, take the following that they have forward. Now, I'm going to be a bit controversial here, so please nobody scream, nobody going, how did you say that? Because I have no loving or respect for this person at all in terms of their impact. But I wanted to talk about someone and mention someone in the British context, the British historical context, who was actually, I have to say, they were a leader, though I didn't like what they did. And that was Margaret Thatcher. I have no loving for her. I'm not a conservative. But I have to say that she was a leader, because I want to talk about a woman. She was a leader. She didn't always do the right things, but you have to say she commanded that party at that time and the country, and had her way, and she, had a vision, and the visions may not have always been right, but I have to say she does fit that category in terms of, talking about gender, so I'm going to talk about women because there's so many men people think of. I have to say about her that I have to give the fact that I would say that she was definitely a leader. That's what I would say.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the controversy. And I'm going to move on to Afua.
Oh, there are quite a number of names that came into my mind as the others were speaking. But I think I'm going to go with my grandmother. And the reason I say that is because I mentioned before that I come from a matriarch. And what my grandmother stands for is women in leadership. She is able to command such respect and authority from men, women, young, old, in a way that over the years I've observed and tried to emulate or even aspire to. She sits in one space, but she commands grace and she commands authority, just even sat in a seat. And her confidence comes up time and time again in the way that she deals with her problems and her challenges. She always refers back to God, but in it, you can see that because she has her relationship with God so firm, she is able to push through her challenges. I say that because I've watched her over the years, just do it time and time again. She was actually bedridden for about 10 years. She had a slipped disc and they weren't able to repair it. But even then, when she recovered from that 10-year in bed, even the positivity that she came back with was something that you just can't bottle. It's so crystal, and she's just always encouraging, always positive. She's always planting seeds in people's lives. She doesn't forget a birthday, and there's lots of us. She doesn't ever forget a birthday. So she always makes you feel included, and makes you feel special. Every one of us feels special, And I think that value that she places on humans and people, and not just, we have a lot of other people that she's embraced into the family. That love that she spreads out to everyone, just really, I think is, as I said, good values that I think is important when you are a leader. So it's my grandmother, really. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you. So we've got a mixture of different words here. We've got, which has come up quite a few times, following has come up, persuasion. Also, we've got vision, strategy has come up as well, respect, values, and also the notion of spirituality has come up as well. And I think that's really important because that helps us with the next part of the questions I'd like to ask you. So thank you for that particular part I've asked you. So I'm going to go on to another question, which is, so what is leadership? So Afua, what is leadership?
I think leadership really is the vision, a vision that's created by an individual. Okay, so somebody has a clear vision about something, and they don't just have it as an idea in the back of their mind. They actually make that vision become a reality, and they find people that can support them to make that vision become real. They're able to persuade and gain support in taking that vision forward, and they have the courage to make it become a reality because of they break through their own personal challenges. So I think leadership really is somebody who has a lot of courage, has a lot of is able to generate support, and really is passionate about the vision becoming a reality.
All right, that's very helpful, thank you. But you say about an individual, can a vision be developed through a group, or is it just individual which develops a vision?
Oh, no, I think that you can develop a team vision or a group vision or an organization vision, but it takes a leader to instill that vision in others. So it has to emulate from something or somewhere. Or actually, no, I say that, but it actually can be facilitated into a common vision, a common goal, a vision that comes together from a number of people. But it's not something that happens just like that. It will have to be facilitated so that the common elements come together to create one vision.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So Eve, to you, what is leadership? You've described lots of things around your role. You didn't say you was a leader, but I want to know, what do you think leadership is?
Well, for me, leadership is actually, it's the ability to, again, formulate a strategy and take that forward from the front. A leader moves from the front and takes people with them. And that the vision is always used, and that's a big part of it. I went into a leadership position as opposed to doing middle management. My first proper one, I would say, was in 2008 when I became the next in line to the sort of head director level of a very large East London council. I was the area I looked after was resourcing. I didn't have resourcing background, but I went for the interview, and I got that interview, and I became became part of the senior leadership team. So again, I guess that answers the second part of your question. Senior leadership team, as it was called, helped to take forward the vision of the department. And so together and collectively in our specialist areas, we had to do just that. So for me, there is a big difference. And people talk about management and leadership. And management is the nuts and bolts, but the strategic part of it is actual leadership. And the reason why leadership is important is not only, it's not a command and control type of thing. It's the vision, yes, but also you have to be, I don't know how you can be a leader without being inspiring. You have to be an inspiring person. And I hope that the people I have worked with, and I meet some of them from time to time, and they say, oh, remember when you are our senior elite person, they'll say, you're so inspiring. Because what I'd like to do is inspire and encourage. And that's really, I think, some of the attributes that a good leader has, is to inspire and encourage. And it goes across the whole way in organizations, and it goes all the way to where most people might think in terms of military, who's the leader, Napoleon, and all kinds of other names, Churchill, and whatever names people might use and so forth, and say these were leaders. But you have to be able to inspire, and you have to be able to instill courage into people. So as they're going through the strategy, the plan, to put in place whatever it is, when they get tired, the leader is the one that gives them strength to go on by inspiring them and emboldening them as well. So I think those are the attributes that they should have, but leadership is actually taking something forward from the front.
All right, thank you very much. That's really helpful. And Dawn, is there anything you'd like to add to that, Dawn?
Oh, I think the responses we've had are quite comprehensive, really. One thing I'd like to say is that sometimes there can be leaders who are stuck in their ways. They can see that something's not quite going right, but they're not prepared to develop their own selves, their own ideas, and they're not prepared to take ideas from their team. So a plan can run into trouble. And if a leader is not constantly developing themselves, because sometimes they feel like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, and nobody can teach me or tell me anything, and for some reason, some leaders get to that position where it's as if the power gets to their head and they're no longer serving their community or their followers, they're really serving themselves. So that is something to watch out for, because a leader can get kind of power hungry and think, yeah, I know it all, and if the idea hasn't come from me, it's not going to happen. Or if the idea has come from a team, they pretend the idea came from them. So I feel that a leader should continue to develop their own personal attributes. They should continue to get leadership training and never feel, yeah, I'm at the top and that's it, I know everything. Because that's a dangerous place to be in, because sometimes there are avenues that a company, for instance, could go down, which would actually make, for instance, their turnover double or treble. But because the leader doesn't see it or doesn't quite understand it and is not prepared to take the time to understand it or to delegate, by the way, because sometimes I remember hearing that Richard Branson, you know, he would hire people who were brighter than him because he wanted the company to grow faster. See, he wasn't depending on his own intelligence or his own ideas. He wanted other people to come in, and he gave them the latitude to actually help grow his companies. And I feel that leaders need to also have that aspect where they can develop and they can grow and they can take advice from other people.
Thank you, Dawn. That's really, really helpful. And I've got a question for you, Dawn. I'm going to throw you the ball back. So, Dawn, you've heard some of the conversation from your colleagues here. Does a leader always have to lead from the front, or can they lead from the back?
There are some leaders that lead from the back, actually, because they don't want to be the face of the company. So they have great ideas, they call the appropriate head of department, they talk to the department, communicate what they want done, and they say, okay, go off and do it. So yes, definitely, there can be leaders from the back. In fact, you can only just look in the FTSE 100. There are many companies in there that are, you know, turning over millions or even billions. You have no idea who started the company or who's the boss, but you know that things are ticking over pretty well because their balance sheet is glowing. So yes, I do think that sometimes leaders can lead from the back. That is definitely possible.
Thank you, Dawn. That's really helpful. I'm going to move on. That's really helpful. I might come back to that afterwards. I just want to go around very quickly, and then I'm going to spread out with the questions, really. I really want to know now is, so what is your experience in leadership? And I'm going to ask Afua first of all. So Afua, I want you to just focus, and it's a focus on leadership. What is your experience in leadership? And leadership can be across the board. I just want to know, just tell me a little bit about what your experience is in a leadership position, or it could be positions.
Okay. I guess I'm going to really start with even being the eldest child in my family. I've always had to take on responsibility. And when my parents weren't around, it was down to Afua to start taking initiative to protect the interests of my kids and my siblings. So, what I was describing was the fact that my parents worked very long hours just to make ends meet in the UK here. And so we were, the three of me and my two other siblings, the three of us were latchkey kids. We used to let ourselves in, and I became the the carer of my two younger siblings. I think many of you might be able to relate to that in the early 70s, 80s, where, you know, first generation migrants working long hours. So that responsibility fell on my shoulders quite early on. By the time I was 18, I joined a program called the Winter Fellowship. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And it was at that program that I actually recognized my leadership skills. It was a 3-year development program for young potential leaders. We went through intensive training. I had a mentor, lots of support in order to really start to recognize myself as a leader. And I worked as I got a job. My first job was as a management trainee for a company. And again, I had to take on that management role. And quickly in the company, I was, identified as somebody who could take the lead. So over the years, in all of my career, I've started off, I've even gone in at junior management and quickly taken on more responsibility. I'm always looking for opportunities, within a company. But I think by the time I had my second child, I realized that I actually wanted to go on my own and set up my first company, where I had, basically it was a company that was to work with placing people in jobs. So it was a recruitment and training company. And that's really where I got my big break into leadership in my own terms, and you know, ran that business for 10 years. It was challenging, but you know what I realized was that yes, you can have a vision for something, and you can actually enroll other people in that vision, and they can come along with you and walk by your side and help you to make that vision become a reality, which is why I said that earlier, because I've actually done it myself. I've engaged with companies, large corporates, companies that I never thought I would have access to in my wildest dreams. I would go and sell an idea, and they would actually walk by my side and help me to make that vision I had become a reality. So it was an amazing 10 years, and I really, really grew into my leadership, and experienced, you know, what it means to stand up in front of people, sell my idea. I think the word being inspirational, you know, I started to see how I could inspire others, you know. So from there, you know, after many years of running that business, I then got the leadership role as the head of the African and Caribbean Business Network, where I got to take on the responsibility of championing of businesses, you know, to help them and enable them to maximize their potential. And came across quite a number of very other inspirational leaders. So it was a very, you know, great experience in just meeting other great individuals, you know, yeah, I mean, that part is a lot of very, very inspirational people I came across. So yeah, I think I naturally tend to move into roles where I don't know whether it's more about my freedom. I like to have the freedom to create. And so I challenge authority. I don't tend to go into a role and sit back and just take everything I'm being told. Which is probably why I always move into a more leadership role, because I'm questioning. I'm always curious to find out how much further can we go with this. And that's always been my philosophy. How far can we really take this? So when I moved to Ghana, I took on less, you know, I started off in a more junior role, but again, quickly, I was being steered towards more leadership roles, and again the story continues. Moving in that direction. I have to say, the last 3 years or so, I kind of went into a recess. I started to think about, I think it was more burnout, because I got into a role where I was giving 150% for 3.5 years, and the stress that came with that job really took me to a point where I had to step back and say, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. And I stopped. And so from that, for the last 3 years, I've actually been very much in the background supporting others. But in the last 30 days, I've actually, again, brought myself forward and said, no, I need to reach out and support people. And so I'm back in to, you know, really giving and seeing what I can contribute to make a difference once again. So that's really my story.
Thank you, Afua. Thank you. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And thank you for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that. I'm now going to go to Dawn, actually. I'm going to go to Dawn. So Dawn, I asked Afua the question, and I'm going to ask you the question. What is your experience in leadership?
What makes you think I have any experience in leadership?
Well,
Maybe I don't have
know
any.
at all, but it depends how you define leadership.
I'm going to challenge you on that, Dawn. That is the biggest story. You have to tell the story, because you are a leader, whether you like it or not.
She's gonna tell the story.
Tell us.
Okay. I think my first experience of leadership was when I was about 11. And I happened to be in the Caribbean for a few years with my grandparents. My mother had sent me from England to go and live with my grandparents. Get a bit of Caribbean life, you know. So I was in church and there wasn't really much going on with the children. And I took it upon myself to get 4 other girls and start a singing group. And it was a bit of a shock to everybody that, oh, you know, no one had asked me to do it. I just felt, oh, I like singing. I'm going to start doing this. And I did it. And we went down a storm. Unfortunately, I think it was about 2 months later, I actually left the group and came back to England. So that was short-lived. But when I got here, I did the same thing in my church. I got another 3 or 4 girls and we started another singing group. And I was writing a lot of songs and, you know, I was quite creative at that time. And I remember also at school, I would have been about 12, 13. You know what it's like, you've got your group of friends and you're hanging around and you're having fun. And then one time we got in trouble. I can't remember I really cannot remember what we got in trouble for. But I remember being stood in the middle of the hall and the teacher waving her hand in my face and saying, "You're the gang leader, you're the gang leader." I'm like, huh? For a start, it wasn't a gang, it was just a group of friends. And how comes I was being called a leader? I was absolutely shocked. You know? I was standing, she stood me in the middle of the hall, you know, and started shouting at me, and I had to stand there for hours as my punishment because apparently I was a gang leader and I wasn't aware that we had a gang and I wasn't even aware that I was a leader. So that was news to me. And then, yeah, things continued. I went into university. I became the secretary of the African Caribbean Society. And I was working closely with the president of the African Caribbean Society, whom I was also dating, by the way. See that? We were both running the show. So that was university and my leadership there. And yeah, when I came out, I went into teaching when I came out of university, teaching maths, of course, and IT. And then I began to teach more and more IT. This is a lesson for people who are looking for jobs. You know, when they're asking you to do certain things and you think you've got an inkling, but you've never done it, just say you've done it and you can do it. Because they asked me if I could teach IT when I went for interview as a maths teacher. I'd never taught IT. I'd done some IT in during my degree. So I just thought, well, the level they want me to teach it at, I could very easily learn it the day before. So that's what I did. And it just so happened that year upon year, as I progressed in my career, I was teaching more and more IT until I was teaching all IT. And then I became head of IT in 3 different schools, you know, promotion. And yeah, leading a department responsible for, I think the last school I taught in, 1,500 students, about 200 staff, including the support staff. I was responsible for all the computers. And I felt something needed to be done about the old equipment they had there. So I took it upon myself to write a bid for the school and got the support of the head and the deputy head. And we won the bid out of all the schools that went in. And actually, Eve, I think you helped me with that. I don't even know if you remember, because I remember saying to you, Eve, how on earth do you do like a tender? You know, I've never done anything like this. And I remember you saying to me, oh, this kind of thing takes a couple of months when we're doing it in local authority. Well, I had 2 weeks to do it. You know? And I did it, and we got it. We got £500,000 to spend on IT equipment. So I planned what equipment to buy. Can you imagine? Someone gives you £500,000. Unfortunately, it wasn't for me, but it was money that I could spend for the school equipment. So I was able to, you know, write my shopping list of all the computers we wanted, all the networking. We dug a trench across the field from one site to another site. Well, I wasn't personally digging, but you know, I basically hired the contractors to do all of this. And yeah, that was leadership. And I think that year that happened, I remember teachers would be looking at me with admiration. Oh, how comes you did all, how can you do all this? And one of them said to me one time, oh, there goes the hardest working teacher in the school. And I knew I was, because I was there early and left late every day because there's so much extra work to do. So yeah, that was leadership within an educational setting. And then I left and decided to go into business. And I have started an organization called Black Economics. And it really is like a group of businesses working together to excel and encouraging the Black community to aim higher, to do better, encouraging our young people. We have a website that basically has a lot of articles. It's probably about 1,000 articles now about Black-owned businesses and hit tips about lifestyle choices and so on. And that website's been going for about 16 years now, and it gets about 3 million hits a month. So it's well established. And recently we started a YouTube channel, of which this program is part of it. But there's a number of other things that we've done in that. We've got to develop a team. We have an advisory board. We have a few freelancers that help occasionally with various tech tasks. And in addition to that, I have a tech and marketing business, you know, which basically means that, you know, I have clients outside of Black Economics who come to me for various tasks to be done for them, whether it's web design or graphic design or marketing. So yeah, that's what I do. And I'd like to think that any ideas that I come up upon, we discuss it in our leadership team with the Black Economics, and I'm responsible for making it happen. And more often than not, it happens, Victoria. Because I just believe you got to know what you want, and you got to go for it. And you've got to think to yourself, I cannot fail. You know, if you think I can't do it, then there's no point even starting. You're just wasting time.
Well, you know what, Dawn, thank you very much. I mean, that was another amazing story, very inspirational. And I'm enjoying this particular YouTube chat, whatever we're on, whatever platform. As you know, I'm not that techie. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Dawn. And so we've heard from Afua, we've heard from Dawn, and now Eve. Eve, what is your experience in leadership?
Well, like Dawn, I would say, and I was actually thinking that before she gave her experience, that like it or love it in terms of how the Black community sees the churches that we've been a part of. I would say that most of us probably had our earliest experiences of leading in some way from that particular, those particular establishments. And, you know, I was, I don't know, 13 years of age, and I was, you know, in Sunday school, I was teaching teenagers much older than me, you know, because I mean, some people say you're a bit forward, you know what I mean? She's a bit forward, but actually, I'm a bright person. That's where the Lord made me at that time. So if I knew things, I just knew them. But I was teaching those who were older than me, and you know, they were enjoying that as well. So you know, from then I was teaching, and then I was preaching. And then I was preaching in convention. I was doing all these things, and I guess as well, you could say within that aspect, I was seen as you know, a leader of different types of ways, and that's really gone up to wherever I've been in terms of different churches. I've been, you know, choir director of the whole district, choir director. I've been part of my church that I'm in now, was head of music. I was head of music department, and then we used to have a guy who's fantastic. He did the musicians, and he also used to say to me, "No, Eve, you're the musical director." And I said, "No, you are." He goes, "Oh, no, you are." And I think what he recognized is that I just had things and ideas about how I wanted things to be, even about how the music was, even though after the department, I was going into the technicalities of how the music should come across. And I said, "Oh, well, maybe you're right then." So I just always had that thing in me. And earlier when I was thinking to myself, you know, the whole debate, you know, are leaders born or are they made? So I'm not sure if we're going to come on that, but there's that aspect where I just think some of it is innate in terms of who you are and the boldness, but also, as Dawn was talking about, you can be made, you can be sharpened. You've got to always be there, sharpening your tools. You've got to be there and ensure that you're learning and you're always learning and taking things forward. In my professional life, leadership started. I mean, my first role that I had at university when I went I went for 3 jobs and I got all 3 of them. But I picked the one that was giving sort of most money at that time back then, because you know, when you want to get a mortgage, if like 2,000 more, it's pretty good, you know. So I went for that, and that's how I went into local government. And actually, my first job I actually supervised 2 people. And I was thinking, I've never supervised anyone in my life, you know. One was a bit old, quite a bit older than me, and one was, she was about a year younger than me. And I was thinking, that was my most thing. How am I going to lead these people when I've never done it in the workplace? But actually, when I started that job, it was amazing how, and it is really important about how you put yourself across people. And there has to be a certain humility as well as a lead. You've got to have a humble part of you, because you need people to make the vision alive, make things work. And we became very good friends, but I went very good friends with both of them. And then the female member of staff, we were friends for many years. But they were good with me. They go, don't worry, Eve, we'll show you how to do this, that, and the other. And, you know, that kind of went from then. Now, moving myself along, and I went to specialise in HR from that. So that was part of a very large HR department doing equal ops monitoring. So I was using part of my degree, maths degree in that, but not a huge amount. But if I fast forward to when I actually went into, you know, a leadership role, as I said, my first leadership role was in 2008 and doing resourcing. And I had 20 posts, 20 staff. So of those 20, I had 16 people in post. And then I lost the leader of one of those areas. So I had to look after then 16 people and try and do the strategic part as well, and be part of strategic boards in the council, all these things, and be part of a, you know, bringing in a electronic records management system, you know, putting that project, all of that, while I was still managing on an operational basis. And that is very, very hard to do, because you do need a little bit of distance to be able to do that strategic thing. So I think when you get too operational, it hampers your strategic ability. And that's one thing about a leader. You've got to be able to, if you can, I couldn't in that situation, push back on that, and you know, give the vibe of emboldening and, you know, putting the vision. Now, I actually decided from there, you know, before that, I would say my move into that post reported to the director, and then, but before that, when I moved from middle management, from the team leader at Kingston Chelsea, I was a team leader. I went out into the NHS. I thought, I'm going to go into a new part of the public sector. I went for a role that was, you know, that sort of I was approached about, and then I got that role, you know, and I just decided. It was scary. I'd not done NHS before, you know, and also it was in Hertfordshire. So it was a regional role, like driving around, that kind of thing. And you're always testing yourself as you move from one thing to another as a leader. What I do as a leader, my skills as a leader, my vision, my essence of who I am, because a leader has an essence of who they are, and they know that. That's a good leader, you know it. Can it work in this particular environment, this new environment? Well, long story short, again, I was reporting to a director. There was 3 of us, and we looked after a huge number of primary care trusts. I had 2 of them, so they're spread out. And you know, my director took a shine to me. So we'd go into our meetings, and she would say, "Oh, Eve's come up with something really good. Go on, Eve, tell them what you've come up with." Now, I was telling people who've been in the NHS a long time, in their jobs longer than me, the ones that I was doing. And all I kept thinking is like, I'm going to be like Josie. These people are going to start hating me, because she keeps on telling them and emailing, "Oh, he's come up with this, Eve did the other." But I thought they were going to really despise me, thinking, "Oh my gosh, who's she?" But actually, as it happened, the word was true, because I did tell them what I did, and then afterwards they go, "Oh, I'm going to contact you, I'm going to call you, email you, and you can tell me more about it." And they genuinely wanted to know. And I think as a leader, that comes from your persona. Persona is so important. And I know I mentioned Margaret Thatcher before, and I know she's a dirty word, because she is to me. Your persona is so important. Her persona was not good, so therefore she became hated, and So people got rid of her, didn't they? But at the end of the day, your persona can persuade people, because someone who's a leader, you should be able to persuade, engage, all those kinds of things. And people just, that's why they want to follow you. And they also want to learn from you as well. So I did move back into local government, and then for 11 years, from 2008, I took on a strategic role. So I was a strategic HR business partner, working very strategically with chief exec, directors at the top level, again in another local authority, which is my local one. So I didn't have far to go to work, just a mile. And I did that for 11 years. The last 3 years of that, again, I tested myself and thought, well, I'm going to go back to the borough that I used to work with, because we're in strategic partnership, and I'm going to be a strategic business partner for them. So I had a number of, it was East London Council, I had a number of people again, direct, so forth, service, working at a strategic level, sitting on boards, all those kinds of things, which I did at my previous place, where I was working, my previous role. But also I had the mayor's office under my particular remit as well. I won't talk about that, it's another story. But I had the mayor's office, so I had the political office under my remit. But then again, that works there, because again, the essence of who I am as Eve, the leader, was formed from when I was very young. So what you do, I believe you do as you go along, is you hone it and you shape it, and then you apply it differently in the different areas. So the core of who you are is always there as a leader. That's what I would say. That's what I believe is the case. And when you go into, in your home, you may be a leader. So I was a leader. I've been a single mother for many years. I have been married twice, but I mean, I've been a single mother for quite a long period of time. You have to be the matriarch. So my matriarch in my family, my mother died when I was a child, so there was no one to ask anything about how things were done. I had to learn all that myself. So you have that leadership role in your home, which is different to the one that you do when you go out into business and so forth. And I always say, if your business, your work persona is the same as your home persona, there's something wrong, because you should be able to shift and shape yourself and go into a different arena, but you're using that essence of yourself and your abilities to actually bring success. Because as a leader, your goal is to encourage, it is to train, it is to encourage, it is to take people along, but the goal is success in some kind of way. You have a target of success, and failure come, but it's not your objective. And even if you fail, you get up again as a leader, brush yourself off and say, this and this may not have worked. I'll tweak it, I'll refine it, I'll work with the team, but my goal is to be a success. And I think that's one attribute as a leader. You have to be tenacious and you have to press for success.
Right. Oh my goodness. I asked the question to all three of you, not knowing what I was going to get back, because I don't know you at all. I've only seen you on here. So there's some fantastic sharing, and thank you so much, Eve, for that. Thank you, all three of you. I think that's really, really helpful. I've got a few more questions I'd like to ask, and I'd say we've got another 15 minutes. So I think we've got some time to ask some other questions. I could take this in all different directions because all of them are very, very interesting. There's one I want to just throw in, and I'm really asking a question which links to some of the research I've done. And I think you touch on it really, which is, does one's identity impact on the way you lead? Does one's identity impact on the way you lead? Now, does anybody want to have a go at doing that? I'm not going to go round to all of you. Does anybody want to have a go at that? So what does one's identity impact in the way you lead?
I would say the answer to that, if I start then.
You can start, Eve.
I would say the answer to that, as a Black woman, raised in a British culture, being in a very small minority, because we're not 20% or anything like that, small minority in this country of the population. And the last role that I went into, which is my local borough, I went into that borough, and it's the first time in my whole career of being in local government where I went into a borough, to an actual council that only had 6% non-white staff. and I thought it was a typo. I thought they don't mean 16 or something, which was brilliant, but no, it was 6. So I was like, okay, then my view as a Black woman, and I do see my Black leader when I go into these different places, and because what I do now is not a senior level, but the fact is I am my own business, so I am my business, and I make it the quality that it is, because that's my business as an interim. That's me. That's my name's on it. But when I went into these places, and particularly when I went into one that my local borough, I had started working there for 7 years. Not that I'll be there that long, but it's like I always think of myself as a Black leader. And I always think of myself that Black excellence is approaching. Now, it's not a vain thing. It's not thinking I'm better than the rest. I just know when I go into an organization, if I speak on behalf of that organization elsewhere, or whatever I do, a stand up is Black excellence is approaching. So therefore, I make sure I hone my craft, and it's in a way, it's not about saying I don't want to say X and Y, but in a way you don't want to say X and Y about Black leaders, because in some quarters they're quick to say, oh, that person wasn't good, and then if someone's there of the Indigenous population, they're not going to say exactly the same thing. You're just not going to get the chance in the same way. But I wasn't going to give them a chance to say I'm not excellent. I tell myself that I'm bringing in excellence, and that's what I do whenever I go in, because you have to encourage yourself, because we can encourage other people. So yes, you have to have a sense of identity. So my 2 main, or 3 really, one's more personal to me, and that's being a Christian. So it's about integrity. There's certain things I will not do, the things that you will not push me to. It's nothing about rules and regulations, it's about the essence inside of who I am in integrity. I would rather, if I do something wrong, say, I did this wrong, I'm really sorry, I'll fix it, rather than tell a lie and say, I don't know what you're talking about, and try to, gaslight people. I will actually say, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. Here you go. My 2 main essence in the business is 1, I'm Black, 2, I'm a woman. So I know that I'm bringing excellence in both counts. And, I was kind of born with this left brain thing. I mean, I've learned to be more soft and fluffy and loving and caring and huggy, but I was born with that left brain thing where I lean towards the left side. So I'm analytical, that's my main thing. It doesn't work very well with people, as I learned when I was young. So I had to teach myself to change. But I come with that. How can I solve this problem? How can I come with a different perspective? And most people that work with me, and they'll say, gosh, Eve comes up with stuff that other people don't think about, because that's what I bring. I feel I bring an excellent and a different way of actually seeing things and picking out those things. But again, it comes from my analytical left brain leaning. So as I said, I envision who I am, not in a vain way, but you have to know your own product. If you're going to sell it, how can you not know your own product, even if it's you as a person? So as a leader, I've tested myself. I've tested myself outside of my comfort zone. I came back into my comfort zone, did a different role, and I'm doing another role now to make my money. But again, I do it in a way that I'm still bringing difference, because I'm leading myself. And then, you kind of help to lead other people that start looking up to you. So yes, you have to have a sense of identity, I believe, to be a good leader.
Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful. Does one's identity impact in the way you lead? There's a paper around that particular question. That's what I write about, the notion of identity and leadership.
Okay.
So, I'm going to ask you a question then, Afua, which is, this is in your experience, is there a difference in the way men and women lead?
Oh, definitely.
And why do you say that, Afua?
I think actually what we have at the moment is a lot of leadership studies has been modelled around male leadership. But what we're now seeing emerging are more women leaders, and their style of leadership is starting to emerge. So even though we have still in the system quite a number of women that are using male leadership styles, we're going to start seeing more and more women leaders using their own preferred style of leadership, which comes with all sorts. I mean, if we look at what happened with COVID, for example, we saw that those countries where you had female leaders, They did much better in terms of performance than those countries where we had male leaders. I mean, again, we're being very generalist here, but I think certainly we're going to start to see more research around this gender difference in leadership. You know, I would say as a woman leader, I come with a more empathy. I look at the problem from a more empathetic standpoint. It might just be a personal style, but I would say that it falls back on my willingness to listen and understand the problem before we move forward with solutions. And I think that as a woman leader, it's important that I do lead by example, because there are other younger women coming through who I also want to inspire to lead, and therefore take on that responsibility very seriously and encourage and support other younger women, you know, who may not feel the confidence to take on, you know, that whole leadership. But in my moving forward, enable others to also do so. And so we, you know, people like Michelle Obama, who we've seen come really take on that whole image of, you know, bringing younger women into leadership. You know, I think her work is incredible, and she's made a big difference to a lot of young women in terms of what she has stood for and what she's made possible. And I think, again, we're going to see a lot more women leaders using their own, feeling comfortable with using their own style of leadership for excellence and results. Yeah.
Thank you, Afua. Dawn, I'm going to ask you a question which is very different, actually. Thank you very much, Afua. So, Dawn, who gets accepted as a leader? And are there challenges and barriers for women leaders which are not white?
Ooh.
Yes.
So the first one is, who gets accepted as a leader?
Yes.
The person must be a good communicator and must have the gift of the gab. All right. There's certain people, you know, if they walk into a room for an interview, they're going to get the job, simply because they can communicate their thoughts in a you know, good English. They've got a good manner about them, but it's how they say it as well. They're just very confident, you know, and I think the ladies in this group are very confident. You know, I can imagine that well, I probably know Eve the best. So I know that most jobs that Eve goes, she used to be one of those persons. She went for a job, she applied for a job, she got it. Went for another job, applied for it, got it. That was Eve, you know. If she wanted to change a job 6 times in a year, she could do it. She would just get 9.5 out of 10 of the jobs she went for. That was Eve. So some people, you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to also make the other person feel good. It's not just a case of, you know, you are so good, you appear to be looking down on somebody. You've got to make the person feel comfortable in your presence. And I think those things are really, really important. If you have great ideas, if you can communicate it, then that is half of this job done.
That's helpful. And what about the thorny issue, which I've just asked you, the one after the first part?
Okay, can you repeat it, please?
Of course. So, because the first part was who gets accepted as a leader, and the other part, are there challenges and barriers for women leaders that are Black?
It depends on the environment they're in. If they're in a corporate environment where most of the staff are white, there can be challenges in the sense that there are people in the company who don't want to see you in the position you're in and who are wondering how you got there. And it's the responsibility in a way of the Black female leader to actually always be proving themselves, which isn't always easy. You've always got to be proving yourself because somebody's always going to be trying to trip you up. But leadership in itself can be difficult in a corporate environment, because I remember, you know, when working in education, and I know it's the same in the corporate world, people are always having a go at the leader, and that's whether the leader's black, white, or Asian. You know, all the headmasters I worked for were, apart from one was Asian, the first one, but the others were white. People were always pulling them out down, criticizing them. So I don't think criticism is unique to black female leaders, but I think there's a particular strength that a black female leader has to have, and particular strategies that they have to use to bring people around. If they know that, you know, there's a group of people who are always out to make trouble for you, you've got to find a way to bring them into your fold, so to speak. You've got to find a way to make them, to help them to understand you, and to work with them so that they feel that they have something to gain by working in a peaceful way. So no, it's not easy as a black leader in a corporate environment, but it can also be quite rewarding in the sense that you are different, and that difference can actually be an advantage. And I think sometimes some of our leaders can make that an advantage, because you're black, you're different, people want to see what you're going to say, they want to hear what you're going to say, they want to see what you want to do, and that difference could actually work out well for the company. Diversity is good, as we know. So it's not always a negative thing that you're a black leader in a white environment. Also, if you are a black leader in a black environment, that has its own challenges, because we are naturally curious people, we're naturally critical people, and I suppose, as in the general population, some of us don't want to be led by others. So it can seem odd sometimes when you are going through a situation in a black environment and the people are not following along in the direction that you're hoping that they would follow along. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a people thing. There are people who don't like to be led and want to do their own thing anyway, or they might come along and be led for a little while and then they get bored and wander off. You know, that's just leadership in general.
That's helpful, Dawn. That's really, really helpful. I've got a couple more things before we close. Eve, would you say that it's all about meritocracy?
Do you mean actually gaining a leadership position or staying in one, or both?
Both, actually.
Okay.
I want you to have a truthful notion here, because this is a message people are going to be looking at. Do you think it's all about meritocracy?
Of course not. It's not, because we're talking about different arenas where who you know can get you to where you want to be. And I don't think there's anyone as us sitting here who's not sat back and been in a situation somewhere in a company or an establishment and thought, how did that person get that role? You know, especially if you're reporting to them. Mm-hmm. And you say, not being spiteful, but you're thinking, you're not a leader, you're not being a leader, and you don't seem to be able to have the substance to be one either. But again, who you know can get you to where you want to be. The whole meritocracy thing is there, but I guess the question about it is that whilst we know there's shades of it to different levels and different arenas, can we overcome it? And my answer to that would be yes, you can overcome it by being the best, you know, by being undoubtedly the best, and as I would say, in your face the best. So, you know, as Dawn was talking about going for interviews, it's not formulaic in any kind of way. When I go to an interview, and I give an example of this role that I'm doing, this is my first interim role. I'm still on it, over a year and a half left. And by the time I leave, it'll be about 2 years that I'm doing it. I'm actually gone to a strategic role from the one I was doing operationally, and I gained one in the organisation to lead part of a function that's not been led before. So so I'm doing that now. I'm setting those standards, and I've done that in other roles. But when I went for the interview and they started to ask me questions and look at my CV, the person who's my line manager now, another one was an interim, two non-white people. And they started asking me questions. Then I was answering those, but I didn't know what to expect. And then the interview started to take different to go off from the questions to, well, I understand you can do this. I can see this in your CV. They would have a discussion about that. There were a discussion about systems. There were discussions about so forth. And it was to be, an HR senior HR advisor or HR VP. And in my mind, I'm answering, and in my mind, I'm engaging, I'm having this discussion, I'm being strategic, I'm adding all these things, we're having this conversation, and we're going to all these things. But in my mind was going, where is this all going? But what they were doing is, when I was answering things, just the way I carried myself when I was answering the questions and having this discussion, and telling myself it's a discussion, and the things that I knew and the way I presented them, it was touching them. It was touching the core of where they are when they were going, and they were liking it. And as Dawn was saying, they were feeling good and saying, we want more of this. We want more of this. So from the time I even entered the building, I was sitting and waiting and went into a discussion. I was like, I'm going to actually be the best. And I actually saw the previous candidate come out the lift while I was sitting there. And she was another woman who was non-white. She passed me and I said, I'm going to be better than you. It was nothing. I just thought that was my thing. When I'm going to be better than you. And I've normally had that kind of thing when I go for interviews. And now I'm going to be better than you. When I went in, the conversation went into places that the questions didn't. They just thought we're going to come off questions and asking more things. So they like what they saw, because the things that I had gone through so many areas and done so many things around systems, around this and that, because that's how I shaped my career. So I have covered lots of different things, so I can be able to talk about those things. And actually, they gave me the role. And when I started, I was talking to the receptionist. I was on reception, and when he saw me, he said, he actually said to me, "Do you know what?" He said, "I said to the line manager, who's my lunch." He had said when they told him I got it. He said, "I knew she would." He just said, "The way that you carried yourself when you came in and spoke to me and sat there in reception, the way you carried yourself," he said, "I just knew it. You were going to be the one." So, it can be a meritocracy. It can be people, in terms of yes, you get it. But there's also things that come in. There's angles that come in where it pushes that down. It's like they know someone, but always try to be the best you can be. And in your mind, the best there is for that role or the opportunity that you're going for. So that's what I would answer to that.
Thank you, Eve. And I've got a final question, which I'm going to give to Afua. Afua, you've had the luxury, and some of you may have also had, but I'm just listening to Afua at the moment. Afua, you've had the luxury of leading in Ghana, which of course is a Black country. Do you identify any differences in leading in a country like Ghana as against leading in the UK? And I think that would be really good for the listeners to just say something about that, please.
No, absolutely. I'm really pleased you've asked me that question, because, I noticed a huge difference between working in the UK for a number of years and working in Ghana. Now, I think it goes back to some of the barriers to entry that we experience here in the UK. When you know that you have the right skills and abilities and the experience, and you go for a role, there are still barriers to entry, and we know that they exist. Discrimination being one of the biggest barriers. Now, in Ghana, it's a very different environment. The barriers to entry are that your class kicks in. So if you are in a certain type of circle, and you come across of a certain type of caliber, and you've been to a certain type of university, then your access to certain roles become a lot easier. The barrier that you don't see to entry, so discrimination is different. Okay, you're discriminated or assessed. No, yeah, I'll use discrimination because there is some level of discrimination. I went for roles where, as a woman, okay, I didn't actually get the job because I felt and I thought in the back of my mind they were actually looking for a man, or they didn't actually say it, but you could tell. But having said that, I was able to get leadership roles quite confidently and lead teams because of my skills and abilities. And when I got that role, I knew that it was because they hired me because of what I could bring to the organization. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are barriers. I mean, as a HR practitioner, we use criteria in order to select candidates. We know that, okay? As to how they are applied, I think that in the UK, we see, this unconscious bias playing out so much more than I experienced in Ghana. So even though I use the example where gender became an unconscious bias, it didn't happen. It was isolated. It wasn't a general thing, and I felt that all the roles I took and had, I was able to go in and confidently sell my skills and actually secure the job. Now, would somebody who was less perceived as less fortunate as myself get the same opportunity? That's where I would question, because class also plays a big barrier in Ghana. And I heard that a number of times. If you're, of a different class, you have to work twice as hard to get anywhere in Ghana, because you don't necessarily have the connections. You may not have, what they class as the finesse, the gravitas to actually secure some of these roles, and yeah, it's an issue.
I mean, that's really, really helpful, actually, Afua, and I could easily talk to all three of you for at least another 30 minutes or even an hour. You've got so much to say. But I want to really say thank you so much. Thank you, Eve. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Afua, for your time you've given today for this, I think, was a really interesting discussion on leadership. And I'm sure that some of the students that I teach, some of the colleagues which are involved with research around leadership will be very interested in listening to this particular podcast, or whatever we call it. I'm not sure what the name is, Dawn, but I think this has been very good. And if you want to say one word each before we close, that would be great. But I want to say thank you very much. Afua, is there anything you'd like to say very quickly, just to close? And then I'll go to Dawn and then Eva.
Well, I would just want to acknowledge yourself, you, Dr. Victoria, for the work that you're doing around gender and leadership. I think it's a very important piece that certainly for ethnicity, looking at it from the Black woman's perspective, is a very important piece. And that body of knowledge needs to be acquired and put firmly in place so that we get the understanding of how Black women leadership is significant and important in the way that we shape Britain. So I want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. Also, Dawn, I've known for many years in the work that she does. And I think, what she always brings to the table is that innovation, creativity, thinking outside of the box around some of our challenges. So, that's really great. Eve, I don't know so well, but, the limited experience and exposure I've had of you, I really want to acknowledge you for your leadership, because as you lead, you allow others to lead as well. So really my only word would be acknowledgement. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Wonderful. Eve, is there something you'd like to say as a kind of a closing remark before I move on to Dawn, who's the founder of this?
Well, I'd like to say, anyone that listens to this recording, is that I want to speak to the women out there, whatever who you are, whatever background you come from. If you're going to go to be a leader, and you already are a leader in many capacities, I'm sure, but if you want to go into the workplace, the world, to be a leader, aspire to be a great leader and aspire to bring excellence to your leadership. That's what I encourage you to do.
Thank you, Dawn. Wonderful. And back to the founder, which is Dawn, for the final words.
Well, I want to say thank you, Victoria, for bringing this theme to us, and it's a demonstration of what you are researching. I'm really pleased and looking forward to see the documents that you're going to produce from this. And I do hope it benefits women who are out there. You know, there are many leaders out there among our community, and some are shy, some are bashful, some are not sure whether they can call themselves leaders. They have great ideas, but they prefer to be in the background. And some don't get the support when they lift their head above the parapet. Some don't get the support. Some are pushed back down, either by their family who said, "Oh, what you think you're doing," or it could be by their husbands or partners who are looking at them like, "Oh, well, you're just, you're just Timmy. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say?" And I just want to encourage people that if you know that something's been placed in your heart that you know that needs to get done, you've got to do it. You've got to do it because, life is short. We're not here forever. And you don't want to look back, when you're, a pensioner and think, oh, I should have done that when I was younger. You have the time, you have the ability now. And even for those who are older in age, you heard Afua talk about her grandmother. I love that story. And I want to hear more about this grandmother of yours, Afua. She sounds like she's an amazing lady, and we can all remember our own grandparents or other women in our family who really stood out for us. We can remember the little things that they said, the things that they did, how they had that power, even with the look. Sometimes they didn't even need to say anything. They would just look and you knew exactly what they were saying, We've got to remember that there is power in what we can do, in what we can say. And if you are a person of faith, you also believe that you have a God of power behind you, and you just need to get out and do what you need to do.
Thank you very much. And I now close the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you.